Welcome to this segment of What Women Bring, a closer look, where I have the opportunity to sit down one-on-one today with Tasha Joyner, Education Honoree for What Women Bring 2023. This extrovert-introvert shares the what and why of her life's work in education, the value of mental health for Black and Brown communities, and the joy of being a wife and a mother. You're definitely in for a treat. Ms. Tasha Joyner, Education Honoree 2023, What Women Bring. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I am so excited to talk to you. Your passion for education really came through at the event. And so this conversation is just an opportunity for me to be more nosy and get to know a little bit more about you, but also so that our viewers and participants, because that panel was just not long enough to dig deep into all the amazing things that all the women brought to the event. So thank you for sitting down with me today for this little brief girl-on-girl conversation.
Yes.
Well, I want to start with just you as an educator. And you talked about just being born into, your mom was in education as a nurse, and just how being immersed in education sort of shaped you knew that you wanted to be in education for the rest of your life. You knew that early on. Who knows that?
Right. So I think it really is that exposure and that access and the modeling of seeing one of my earliest best friends was a special education teacher. She was from Virginia, and she was new to Greenville, South Carolina, my hometown.
Yes.
And it was one of those things that I would help her in the afternoons. I would see her doing lesson planning. I could see the passion and the work that she put in behind the scenes to make sure that her students were given the same opportunities as our general education students, being that she taught special ed.
Right.
And just seeing the ins and outs with my mom being a school nurse, it was that second home, being there early in the day and in the afternoons, and sometimes sitting in on faculty meetings. It was something that I knew that education was the root and the foundation of every other profession. And knowing that is something that I could be a part of, it started early on.
Right.
And so my parents have always valued education. They've always been involved, either professionally or personally. My dad was actually the PTA president of my high school. And so we saw it from all aspects, that education was that door and that window out of anything. And it was the basis of it. And so to be able to be someone that is fostering that in whatever capacity that I'm in, so directly from the classroom, but then also thinking about education in general. So educating people about different things, about mental health, about, how you can support your child when they are at home and how the community can engage in education. It really is not about what's in a book. It is about informing and inspiring and being that resource for those around us.
Awesome. And speaking of different capacities, because you have a very interesting role in education right now, and particularly as we've all gone through COVID and all the 2020, everything that's happened since 2020. You have a very interesting role that I think personally as a counselor is very important.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So I've been in various capacities with CCSD, but in my current role, I am the Project Prevent grant officer. And actually we were awarded that grant back in 2019.
Wow.
And then 2020 happened.
Wow.
And so literally we were in the midst of this pandemic that no one knew anything about. We knew about Zoom, but it was more for just convenience. It wasn't the mode in which we taught children or we did therapy with children and provided, support for them.
Right.
We were used to doing that in person. And so we basically had to figure it out. We had to think outside the box. We had to quickly determine how to get students devices. What we did find is in a lot of our homes, because that's where everyone was, there was a lack of infrastructure.
Right.
We talk about the digital divide, and it was that how do we take what our students and our scholars were getting in our school buildings and making it accessible at home.
Yeah.
And so we had to be very creative in that work and doing things like check-ins, creating documents where they could say how they were feeling or they were thinking. But the other aspect was that virtual learning, and that was very new to a lot of us in the K-12 system.
Yeah.
It was more familiar with our collegiate level.
Yes.
And so it was researching what we could. It was, you really have to, across the screen, it is a different level of engagement. It is chunking the information, but really tapping into particularly our students and our communities of color, that kind of isolation, because we all know we were all in a pandemic, but it did impact different people for various reasons differently.
Yeah.
And so we really had to tap into not only educating our students, but educating our families and educating parents on how to access Google Classroom or how to get on the Zoom call, and we even had to do things like we had to make work packets where we would send the information home, and then we would do like a collection of that drive-through. It really turned into that type of thing. And what I am happy about is that we did what we had to do to meet the need, so that learning could continue, so that support for their mental health and wellness could continue as well. And what it has now done is it really has shaped what we had to do then and what were those best practices, and we've been able to embed those into what we do now.
So you've seen, because I know particularly in Black and brown communities, mental health, we just don't talk about it.
Correct.
We're going to push through,
right?
And we're just going to make the things happen. It's been well received.
So it has. And part of that is we have built relationships. And so as a part of my grant team, we have two coaches that work with me. They have been in the North Charleston area in some capacity, internally or externally to the district. And so it really is that trust, it is that relationship, it is that us being the example. So us saying that we struggle. We struggle as a mother, we struggle as a sibling, as a spouse. And so having those conversations, making it real and make it relatable. We were even very strategic in any of the professional learning and workshops that we did, making sure that the person that was facilitating it, one, we were with them, so they saw a familiar face, but also vetting their examples, making sure that their visuals were reflective of the audience and making sure they were aware of the audience, because the thing that will turn someone off is something that they can't make a connection to, or if they feel like they're being talked to versus being talked with.
Yeah.
And so we really had to be intentional, and we have been very strategic in doing that, because we do know that there's a stigma attached in our Black and brown communities.
Awesome. I think that's wonderful, because I think those things get ignored.
Yes.
So when I heard you talk about that, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So your passion, so my mother was an educator. My aunt was a nurse, and my other aunts, there were three girls, and my other aunt worked with students who were at home, learning, still needed, they were home for either sick, mostly it was health. So same thing, came in that, thought I'd be a teacher. Then I was like, no. But the why, when you talk about knowing what your why is, that just reminds me of hearing the three sisters talk about why they do the different things that they did. So your why, besides your mom and your best friend, your why is what drives you.
Yes.
And is it the students?
It is the students. It really is, because they will then grow up and be a part of society. And so I want to make sure that they are equipped with the tools that they need to be, we have a saying that, productive citizens. But it really is for them to not only survive, but to thrive in the world that we live in, knowing that there are barriers that they will come across, but giving them those tools that they need, that is really what it is about. It is about equipping them. It is about, advocating for them. It is about building those relationships so that, years from now, they can either come back to me as a resource, or hopefully, I talk about planting a seed. I have planted seeds and nuggets that then we see the fruit of our labor, whether it be, an accomplishment or whatever their definition of success is. So the why definitely is our students, and also preparing them to be productive and thriving citizens.
I like the thriving, absolutely. And you talk about leading from where you are, because we know that every system, but school districts there's so many levels. And I can remember so many people just in the building that may not have even been in the classroom that impacted me, whether it was negatively or positively. I can remember a couple of cheerleader coaches that I could have done without. So there are, that impact of leading from where you are. So I want to hear you expound on that a little bit.
So and as you mentioned, those good experiences, but also those bad experiences. And one thing that I say is that my leadership, some of it has been influenced by what I want to be more like. And some of it has been because that's not the way that I want to be perceived as a leader. And so it has been a opportunity, and I've been very blessed to either be provided those opportunities or seek those opportunities to lead in whatever capacity that I'm in. And I think it starts with knowing what's next and putting things in place that get you to that next step. And it is very important for me to really talk about leading from where you are. And so leading is also modeling. So it is also the balance of, while you may be leading a project, you're also a part of the team. And you're willing to step in, which then it makes the project even better, in my opinion, because they know that you either entrust them in their part of it, or you're in tune just enough. You're not micromanaging, but you're also willing to get in the trenches with them. And so I often tell people that I don't ask anything of my team that I'm not willing to do myself or that I haven't done before, so that I can tell you this is what to anticipate. But it is also making sure that what you're doing in that leadership capacity is going to take you to the next level, and always being better and doing more, and that self-reflection of what could I have done. I did well, but what could have been that extra little spark if I had more time, if I had 10 more minutes, or, if I wasn't working on something else, what could I leave with that project or that task or that event that I was in charge of?
Yeah, I like the self-reflection too. So there's a lot that you do. There's just a lot. And you take this I can tell that you take this very personal. So how do you have your woosah moments? How do you decompress or reinvigorate yourself? Like, how do you keep it going?
So surprisingly, a lot of people don't know that I am an introvert. Personally, I'm an extrovert professionally, because that is just what it is about. And so I really feel like it's a balance. And so what I do spend a lot of time by myself. I will binge watch Netflix. I am a Law and Order, all of them, SVU, Criminal Intent, the original, the OG. So Law and Order, but it is looking, kind of disconnecting with, TV. I believe in self-care, but I also believe in, while you're doing self-care, is figuring out what you have to kind of escape from and what can you do as far as boundaries and things like that. But I do like to spend time with family when I have refreshed and rejuvenated.
Yes.
But it really is just a balance. It is really spending time doing things that I like or I want to do. And that's the difference. It is doing things when I am in my introvert state, it is things that I want to do.
Yes.
Versus the things when I'm an extrovert is things that I have to do.
Well, speaking of things you want to do, you have fantastic family.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Home life.
So I am the proud wife, or as I have said before, the first lady of St. John's High School.
Okay.
So my husband is the principal at St. John's, Jermaine Joyner. He is actually from Charleston. He went through CCSD schools and then continued at the Citadel for undergrad and grad school.
Wow.
So he is a hometown. He's here.
Okay, so he's the what men bring.
He's the what men bring.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he definitely is. And we are the proud parents of 2 children. So we have a girl. Our daughter is actually her first year at South Carolina State University.
Ooh.
She is 3rd generation. My dad, along with my 2 sisters and myself, we all attended South Carolina State. She's a part of the Honors College there, and just actually on this past Friday got inducted as a Clyburn Scholar.
Nice.
And so she is 19, and she is Tasha Jr., and as people have said, that she brings the same energy that I bring to everything. And then our youngest is our son. He is 12. He's a 7th grader, and he is Jermaine Thomas Joyner. So we call him JT. And they keep me going.
Yeah.
Between my husband, because we're both in education, and so we have a very similar passion. And we do this for our children. You know, we do what we do, and we invest in our profession so that we can get those outcomes, and they can see by us doing things and modeling for them.
I love it. Well, I feel like you are just an example of many great folks behind some of the things we see that we don't like that happens in education. A lot of the things we see we would really like to change, but I'm glad that you are back there and your husband is back there fighting for and with our families, particularly our black and brown families. We need all the help we can get. And I'm glad that your program and your grant is being well received in the community. So thank you for sitting with me. And I knew I loved your energy, and I feel, we're going to do some things. I got some things I'm going to send you.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
We're going to connect.
I got you.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.